I hope we can work with this lighting because our options are limited. Hi, hello, welcome to my channel. Look who has decided to make an appearance right before I have to leave for my congress. You're in luck, I'm in luck. We're going to be able to talk about the palette before I leave, and then I'm already going to mention it now. I am going to come back and do a week of Celestial Nirvana on my channel, but it will take a little bit of time because, as I mentioned in one of my previous videos, I will be away on a congress for a few days, only coming back towards the weekend. So we will continue to be exploring this palette very much in depth throughout next week. But for this week, I'm only going to be able to do the initial impressions video. So hopefully you are into that. I'm going to swatch all the eyeshadows. We're going to do two different eye looks because also hopefully I don't look like a hot mess. I tried to adjust my makeup as much as possible, but I just removed my eyeshadow that I was wearing earlier because I was wearing eyeshadow earlier. I went to work and then I came home and my palette was delivered to my absolute joy and delight. However, it is later in the day, so I have much more sunlight coming into my room, and even with the drapes, you can see that it's quite bright in here, but at least you're going to get a really good idea how these eyeshadows look like in broad daylight, no artificial lighting. So if you're on my channel watching this video, you probably know what this palette is all about, but this is the third Mega Mothership palette that Pat McGrath Labs have released. They have released these palettes already for the past couple of years, and the whole idea with these palettes is that you get a total of 18 eyeshadows, and the difference between this palette and a lot of her other 10 pan palettes is that these are smaller size pans, they are cheaper, and they do not feature any of her baked formulas. So in here you get regular metallic, shimmers, mattes, somewhat glittery types of eyeshadows, but none of them are in her baked Astral, VR or Blitz formula. That's just very important to get out of the way because there is a lot of discussion whether these palettes are worth it or not compared to her motherships, which you can also get on sale for a relatively similar price. Do you want more eyeshadows in terms of quantity of the eyeshadows, or do you really just want to try the Blitz, VR and Astral for the what I think is more genuine Pat McGrath experience, because I don't think you can get that if you get these palettes. These are These are a great way to try Pat McGrath Labs if you don't really care what kind of formulas she offers and what is the true Pat McGrath Labs experience and what isn't. I don't want to be a snob, I'm just telling you, if you wanted the true Pat McGrath experience, you should get a mothership. These are great, but they're not going to give you the same type of experience. I don't own the original Mega Mothership that she released 3 years ago, the Celestial Divinity, because that already featured 2 6 pans that were released in her Star Wars collection that I already owned, and I didn't really feel like spending money for 6 new eyeshadows. The one from last year is one of my favorite palettes from her, that is the Celestial Odyssey palette, and this year, as you can see, we're getting the Celestial Nirvana palette. The Celestial Nirvana palette is something quite new for Pat McGrath because this is the first time that we're getting such an overwhelming amount of matte eyeshadows and also such an overwhelming amount of colorful eyeshadows. This is to basically shut up everyone who has been begging her to release the literal rainbow. I wanted to pull out Celestial Odyssey to show you here just for reference. You're getting much more I don't know, neutral tones in here, much more metallics and shimmer eyeshadows, and a very important difference that I want to point out for the actual packaging is here you have this black plastic insert, whereas in the Celestial Nirvana palette it is just cardboard. It's not fancy shiny black lacquered insert. What she has ditched on the way, to my joy, is that stupid logo that she had slapped here in the smack middle of the Celestial Odyssey palette, which always visually really bothers me, and the logo is now just neatly written here. As far as the outer packaging goes, I always love Pat McGrath Labs outer packaging, so as far as I'm concerned, this is a piece of art. I enjoy it, and there's not much more than I can comment on that. I'm obviously going to give my final thoughts on the color story and initial impressions on the performance of the eyeshadows in the end of this video, and I'm only going to give a final review once we have completed the week of Celestial Nirvana, so that will be in about 2 weeks from now. But the only thing that I wanted to comment prior to us starting, generally speaking, and that's just my personal opinion, you don't have to agree with me, I was not one of the people who was asking her to release the literal rainbow, because I think that is the difference between Pat McGrath Labs and a lot of other brands. And to put it in a metaphorical sense so that maybe you understand a little bit better what I'm saying, when I say that I don't want the literal rainbow is, let's say you are going to a restaurant. You're going to a normal restaurant and then you order meat with vegetables and some potatoes. all laid out for you. You know exactly which taste you're getting. And then you go to a Michelin star restaurant. And then you order basically a dish that contains the same ingredients. But instead of them being just simply, you know, vegetables, meat and potatoes, you're getting a foam of whatever vegetables. You're getting some fancy paste. You're getting like all these like differently combined tastes that you would never have thought of before. I don't know whether my metaphor is coming across, but to me that is the difference and what I want from Pat McGrath Labs. I want her to be a Michelin star restaurant. I don't want her to literally serve me potatoes, meat and vegetables. I want her to serve me stuff made of foam that, you know, I'm going to dip into it and be surprised by all the different things that I didn't expect to see in there. That is what I mean by the literal rainbow. This palette is what a lot of people asked for, which is meat, potatoes and vegetables on the plate. And to me, her other palettes, a lot of her other palettes are that Michelin star rated experience. That's just my little rant and my personal opinion on why I was not one of the people who wanted the literal rainbow palette from her. What I will say is that I purchased this palette not to enjoy as a standalone palette, but as a pairing palette. But we are going to come back to that in the very end of the video. And now, without further ado, I want to proceed to swatching all the eyeshadows in this palette. Now, something that she has done this time and she has never done before is she calls it the anatomy of a palette. And basically, because this eyeshadow palette is so colorful and it can look so jumbled and all over the place, she has basically split it into 3 6-pans. So this is what she calls the, I think, the neutral one. This is your like blue purple one, and this is your warm toned like reddish pinkish goldenish one. I think that's really cool, really convenient if you really don't know what to do with this palette. I personally will not be abiding by such constraints, but that's because I also have a lot of experience pairing different colors of eyeshadows, and you know, I know what to do with this palette. I don't have to be told what to do with it. But I figured, because it's interesting to me how these 6 pans are really going to look next to each other as like a separate sub palette, I want to swatch them together. So I'm first going to swatch this 6-pan and then this 6-pan, and then finally we're going to swatch this 6-pan, and I'm going to tell you per eyeshadow what they feel like, what the texture is and what the tones are like. I like to do live swatches. I don't like to just swatch everything and wave it in front of you. I really like to ramble about each individual eyeshadow. So in the first 6-pan, the neutral one with the green matte, I think I'm first going to swatch all the 3 matte eyeshadows. So here you have the 3 matte shades. They felt very soft to the touch, very consistent with other mattes from her lineup. And I do want to remind you, so that you can keep it in mind, matte eyeshadows do not swatch well. They need to apply well on the eye, they don't need to swatch well. So here you have the champagne. Next to that we have the more glittery taupe shade, and finally we have this like sort of like antique gold bronze shade. I really love the tone of the 2 neutral like taupe browns. This is a beautiful, beautiful taupe brown. I can't wait to play with this. This is a gorgeous deep brown. The green shade has more blue tones to it than yellow tones, so it makes it more like a teal green than a true forest green. I was hoping more for a true forest green, but I'll take it. Then the standard, you know, Pat McGrath Champagne Metallic, I don't know that there is much to comment there. This shadow is very interesting. It also looks a bit more textured in the pan, and I think it's going to be a beautiful glitter taupe neutral shade. This shade is, like I said, more of your like antique bronze. It has a little bit of coolness to it, and I think that is the eyeshadow to me that's the most. And I also think that within this 6-pan, this is the only eyeshadow that sort of like doesn't really fit with the rest because of its tones. I don't really know that it will go with any of these mattes or this matte. This is not my favorite pairing here in terms of like the gold shade together with the other 5 shades. The other 5 shades I can totally see together, they're beautiful together, but this specific gold just is not working for me in this 6-pan. You have no idea how excited I am for that indigo blue shade, because it is a gorgeous shade of blue. Here you have the 3 mattes. Let's give it a bit of space and then swatch right here. Oh, this is delightful. Gorgeous. So we have this metallic lavender shade, then we have this like bronzy pink metallic, and finally we have the absolutely gorgeous aqua blue shade. I am really excited about this deep blue navy matte. The two purples are really beautiful. I'm not like the hugest fan, especially of these like warmer purples, but I'm curious about the cool toned one. We have seen a lavender from her before. There is actually a lavender in last year's release. I'm quite interested to see how the two compare. Pink champagne, have we seen those from Pat McGrath? About 1 million. This is one of the most exciting shades to me in this palette because it is such a vibrant aqua. And you might choose to call me crazy, but I feel like I detect a little bit of pink sparkle running through this shade. And it reminds me very much of an eyeshadow that I used to love from Notoriously Morbid. In terms of how cohesive this color story is as a 6-pan, I guess it is just about as cohesive as this one, because again, I don't know that this rosy shade here, this rosy bronze, which to me has a little bit more of like a warmer tone to it, fits with the rest of these relatively cool toned eyeshadows. Even with this purple that's warm toned, I don't know that this pink shade fits in here. Like if you really wanted a pink shade that would fit in here, I think that like a baby pink, something that is a bit more cooler in tone, would have maybe fit better. And I've definitely run out of space on this hand, so I'm going to move to my other hand to swatch the last 6-pan, which features the warmer toned eyeshadows. Let's start again with the mattes. So here you have the mattes, a burgundy red, a coral red, and a classic Pat McGrath hot baby pink. And last but certainly not least, we have the 3 metallics that are in here. Another gold that seems to be a little bit more cool toned, actually very much reminds me of the gold in Subliminal. Then we have this more chunky shade, which looks to be like a bronze, very much similar to Bronze Nova actually from Celestial Odyssey, but maybe a little bit chunkier in texture and a little bit warmer. And finally we have this like warm toned bronzy reddish shade. So here we have the last 6-pan. I actually think I'm the most excited for this gold here because it seems like such an interesting cool toned gold, like a bronze, reddish bronze, and more of like a copper bronze we've seen from Pat before. So I have to say that perhaps something that I find a little bit more disappointing in terms of the metallics here is that none of them seems to be a duochrome. All of them are just straight up the color that, you know, they swatch as. Maybe once I put them on the eye they will look a little bit different and I'll be able to appreciate complexities that they may have that don't translate well on a swatch. But, as of now, I don't really consider any of these metallics to be something super special, especially not if you consider her current range of eyeshadows. So these are all the eyeshadows from the Celestial Nirvana palette. You can give them one last look-see. I suppose a lot of you are very curious about the colorful matte eyeshadow, so maybe let's start with like the more colorful eyeshadow look. I'm going to put the green shade here through the inner part of my crease, and I want to put the navy blue through the outer part of my crease, and I will try to just leave it at these two mattes. I won't use a transition shade, but in case I have to, I will also put a little bit of this one. Taking a small blending brush like this one from Zoeva, and I'm going to go into the teal green shade and run that here in the inner portion of my eye. These are quite pigmented off the bat, and I have to tell you, I haven't used colorful matte eyeshadows in such a long time that I might be very much out of practice. Once upon a time this would have been a no-brainer for me, but nowadays mama gotta work for it. Okay, I'm going to leave it at this. Then I'm going to use the very same brush, take a tiny bit of that navy blue because it was quite deep and these are applying pretty pigmented off the bat, and I'm going to start fluffing that right here into the outer corner of the eye and then slowly bringing it into the crease to meet up with the green. Both of these have a fair amount of kick up in the pan, just FYI, and they apply quite pigmented on the lids, so I would say proceed with caution. Apply in small increments and blend out. I think blending out is not a problem, but they're very dark. They are a little bit powdery, so if you are insecure about working with such colorful matte eyeshadows, first of all, I would suggest to not do your face makeup first, and second of all, to apply a little bit, blend it out, and apply more afterward. Next, I'm going to take Pat's Intensifies stick because I would like to apply the metallic eyeshadow over top of that. That is just how I always apply my metallic eyeshadows. I don't think it's a necessary step, but it is one that I enjoy. So I'm going to stick with that. And then I'm going to take this beautiful aqua blue shade because I can't wait to whack that all over my lid. And I'm going to just apply that right here over top of that glitter glue. I'm going to go back into the navy blue just here to intensify a bit that outer corner again. And I think in my inner corners I'm going to apply the lavender shade because I feel like it works with this color story the best. This is really pretty. I can tell you already now, this is a lot brighter than the lavender shade in Celestial Odyssey. The Celestial Odyssey one is also very pretty, but it is not as bright, and when I put it in my inner corners, it doesn't have that brightening effect. This is gorgeous. I love this. This is a little bit like the special topper shade that we got in the Mothership 10 Moonlit Seduction, but then as an opaque metallic eyeshadow rather than a glitter. And I don't want to make it too messy and too colorful, so on my lower lash line I'm just going to take the navy blue and I'm going to run that here underneath my lower lashes to finalize the first look. You have no idea how long it's been since I've worn anything this colorful. Once upon a time this was my baseline, and now it's like, whew, it's been a while. Okay, let's do something a little bit more familiar. I want to do something featuring the more neutral shades on my other eye. I wanted to start off with the colorful one because I think everyone was more interested in how the colorful eyeshadows are going to perform, and I think they performed pretty well. So for the look that I want to do on my neutral eye, of course I'm going to go into this shade because I cannot wait. It just looks so deliciously like cool toned. Then I'm going to deepen up with this one. I want to put this one on my lid because it looks like a really interesting shade, and I think it's really going to shine once I put it on my lid. Let's start with the three neutrals, and then we're going to decide about the inner corner and the lower lash line. Obviously we're going to also do some comparison swatches because this eyeshadow needs to be swatched next to Statuesque and Ultimate Taupe, or whatever the shade is called in the Subliminal palette, which is also like a cool toned matte transition. I can already tell you the one in Subliminal is a lot lighter in tone compared to this one. I really love the tone of this eyeshadow. I'm going to use the crap out of it. Okay, then I'm going to clean off really well my little pencil brush here, and I'm going to take the deep brown matte and I'm going to apply that here in the outer part of my eye. A bit of a winged shape, something that I do quite standard here, and then just lightly bring it inwards here in the outer corner. I'm also really happy with the tone of the deeper brown. It's also a beautiful cool tone. Next I'm going to once again take my little Intensifies stick here to apply on my lid and inner corners. Provides a little bit of a tacky base, and especially this more textured neutral shade is probably going to perform slightly better over a tacky base. Again, I'm going to use my finger in order to apply that beautiful cool toned taupe shade. It looks absolutely delicious on a swatch, and it reminds me a lot of the taupe shade that we have in Voyeuristic Vixen. It's not like a super interesting shade. I think Bronze Nova in last year's Celestial Odyssey was much more of an interesting neutral. Okay, a move probably nobody expects me to make, but I'm going to make it. I think I want to mix a little bit this champagne shade here with that bright Barbie pink because I want to have like a Barbie pink inner corner highlight. So I think I'm first going to apply this one, and then I'm going to start mixing in this one in, and let's see what happens. Uh-oh. The toddler is upset, excuse me. Wat doet papa uitzetten?
Hij doet die leken uitzetten. Met die spannen.
And I'm going to take a little bit of that Barbie pink and start mixing it here together with that metallic to create like a light Barbie pink metallic. I'm sure that's not a move you anticipated me to do of all people, but it will all come together once you see what I want to put on my lower lash line. So let me tell you, on my lower lash line I actually want to apply this beautiful purple here as like a little pop of color, so that we have also used another one of the colorful mattes. So I'm just going to run that here on my lower lashes. So I know this looks a bit crazy, but here you have the really colorful blue-green moment with the lavender inner corner. And here you have the neutral with a pop of purple on the lower lashes. I know I look a little bit crazy, but now I want to go on and do a couple of comparison swatches. I don't plan on overdoing it with the comparison swatches because in terms of like the matte colorful eyeshadows, there's really nothing to compare to. Maybe we can put the pink shade next to the one in Eternal Eden, which looks to be the most similar to me just looking at it and the pan. And I want to swatch that beautiful taupe shade, which let me tell you if I can figure out the name of. I think it's called the Desert Divinity. This shade I should remember because this might be one of my favorites in this palette. Okay, so I want to compare this shade to Statuesque, and I want to put it also next to the matte shade in the Subliminal palette. So here you have Subliminal, here you have Statuesque, and here you have Desert Divinity. And like I said, I think the one from Subliminal is just so much lighter in tone. Here you have Statuesque, which is a little bit more brown and deeper. And here you have Desert Divinity from the new Celestial Nirvana palette, which I think is the deepest one of the three. By comparison, the one from Subliminal doesn't even look all that cool toned. It looks almost a little bit peachy compared to this one, which is so much more cool toned. I really love this shade. Since I have the Subliminal palette open here, and I mentioned that this gold shade here reminds me very much of one of the like Blitz VR shades in the Subliminal palette. So that's this one here, which for sure in terms of its texture is superior. It's just superior in so many ways. Okay, so here you have the one from the Celestial Nirvana palette, and obviously the really shiny one is from Subliminal because it's a VR shade. So here you have Nirvana, and here you have the one from Subliminal. The one from Subliminal is clearly the more cool toned one. In comparison, the one from Nirvana is actually not that cool toned, and it has almost like a bit of a peachy tone to it. Like a peachy coppery, slight peachy coppery tone. How interesting. I mean, while we're at it, we can also swatch the deep brown matte from Subliminal next to the one from Nirvana. Although I think the one from Nirvana is more like a pink brown, and the one from Subliminal, so this is Subliminal, this is Nirvana. The one from Subliminal is so much more cool toned. It's like a charcoal brown gray, and this is your, you know, typical deep brown shade. Very pretty though. Really love the tone of this brown as well. Now let's swatch a little bit lavender shades. There is a lavender here in the Subliminal palette. It's a completely different texture. This is more like a satin shimmer shade, but I would like to swatch that next to the one in the Nirvana palette. And also, I mentioned it already, but there is a lavender purple in Odyssey as well. My goodness, these are so awkward to hold. And by comparison, I can already see this one is like so much different in terms of tones. So this is the other lavender I want to swatch. So here you have the three shades. This is the satin from Subliminal, this is the lavender from last year's Celestial Odyssey, and this is the new lavender from Nirvana. Subliminal, Odyssey, Nirvana. I told you this one is so much deeper and not as bright as this one. This one is a true lavender. It's really pretty. And because I told you that it reminds me of that glitter topper from Moonlit Seduction, now I have to pull out Moonlit Seduction, which I've already packed in my suitcase for the Congress. 1 minute. So the shade in question is this one here. Let me swatch that next to the new one from Nirvana so we can just look at the tones. Obviously they will be completely different textures because one is like a metallic and the other one is a glitter. But I'm just curious. Yeah, they are. Yeah, this looks like a lighter and more pink tone, but they are the most similar out of the four. Okay, for the pinks, I mentioned Eternal Eden, so let's take this pink shade here and swatch that next to the pink in the new palette. Alright, here you have Eternal Eden and here you have Nirvana. I think those are probably going to be the closest pinks in her collection, and I already think the one from Eternal Eden is a much warmer pink compared to a lot of her other pinks, which are quite cool toned. But in comparison, the one from Nirvana is even warmer. Look at that. Look how much more yellow this pink has. I like it. I really like me a warm pink. So I mentioned to you that this shade here reminds me of a taupe shade that is present in the Voyeuristic Vixen quad. So let me do a comparison swatch of that. Let me show you the shade in question. It's this one over here. So here you have Vixen and here you have the new one. They are equally shiny and beautiful, but the new one seems to be maybe... Yeah, no, they're very similar. Let me swatch it because I'm having a hard time detecting the differences. So this is the one... Oh, sorry, this is a horrible swatch. This is the one from Voyeuristic Vixen. And this is the new one from Nirvana. Okay, so the new one from Nirvana is a bit deeper in tone and a bit more like maybe neutral. They are in a similar vein though, so this one is just going to be, yeah, this one is just going to be a little bit lighter in tone. I mentioned a shade from last year's palette, so this one over here, the shade Bronze Nova, which reminds me a little bit of the two more sparkly shades in Nirvana, but by comparison I think Bronze Nova is superior because it is so much more of an interesting shade. It has a little bit of a shift going on to it. So I actually want to swatch this one next to Bronze Nova because I think they are the two bronzes in the two respective palettes. Okay, so here you have Bronze Nova and here you have the one from Nirvana, and I don't know whether you can see there is so much more going on in Bronze Nova. There is a bit of like a goldenish green flip and there's a bit of like pink sparkle, whereas the new one is very shiny, but besides being shiny there's really nothing else going on in there. This is Bronze Nova and this is the new shade. Also, it's much more orangey, much more of an orange bronze compared to Bronze Nova, which is more neutral in tone. And like I said, I feel like there's so much more interesting things going on in Bronze Nova. This one has maybe like a little bit of like a gold flip to it, but like an orangey gold flip is not enough to make it as interesting as the shade from Odyssey. She has this like fiery orangey shade here that we can maybe swatch next to the orange shade that was present in the Odyssey palette, which is a completely different shadow, by the way. I think this is the shade Corrupt Copper here. I think they're going to be very different, but maybe it will give you an idea how much more like reddish orange this is in comparison. I think I might like this shade a lot once I put it on my lids. So here you have Corrupt Copper from last year, and here you have the orangey flaming red from the Nirvana palette. Yeah, Corrupt Copper is so much more orange. This is much more red. I just wanted you to see the difference. And I just want to give you an idea how unique this antique gold here is, and I want to swatch it next to more of a typical Pat McGrath gold, which is more like your yellow gold. For example, something that was present in Odyssey here is something that I would consider more typical of Pat McGrath in terms of golds. Pat McGrath likes her like goldy golds, like yellowy golds. and antique ones are not something that she has given us a lot of. So this one has more greeny tones to it compared to this one. So maybe that's also why it is placed in the same like 6-pan as the green eyeshadow. But what I don't understand is the green eyeshadow has a teal undertone to it, like a blue undertone. So if you wanted this green to work with this matte green, then this should have been a completely different tone, but that's just me. Maybe I'm crazy. So here is your typical Pat McGrath gold. And here is the gold from the new palette, which is much more subtle and much more neutral in tone. And I see here that I haven't done a good job cleaning my hand here. Sorry. Here you have it now without any distraction. See how much more neutral in tone that is? This is actually a very interesting eyeshadow. It may not be very interesting in terms of its texture, but in terms of its tone, I find it to be quite unique, even within the realm of Pat McGrath golds. Pat McGrath has given us so many golds, but this one is very unique. Now there's only one shade that I can think of that is maybe somewhat similar to the aqua blue that I have on my lid here. And that is present in her Nocturnal Nirvana, and that is this shade here. Again, a completely different formula. This is one of her VR shades. But now that I look at it, this has a little bit of that purple flip, the one from Nirvana, let me show you. And the one from Nocturnal Nirvana, again another Nirvana, she likes her Nirvana, is actually more of like a green toned, like a seafoam green blue. So this is the one from Nocturnal Nirvana. This is the new one from Celestial Nirvana. See, completely different shades of blue. So this is also a very new, very unique shade. Again, unfortunately, nothing too interesting in terms of its like sparkly qualities, but it has a bit of like a pink purple flip to it. A subtle one. Okay, you guys, let's wrap up here with some final thoughts about the Celestial Nirvana palette, or at least some initial final thoughts, because I'm sure I will have much more to say once I have used the palette a bit more extensively. But I want to point out something that, just to make it clear from the start, I did not buy this palette to use it on its own. To me, from the very beginning, this was a palette that I'm going to enjoy much more when I do my pet pairing series. If you've never been around my channel, I can leave somewhere in the cards. One of my most successful series here on YouTube is my pet pairing series, where I basically create looks combining Pat McGrath palettes. So to me, this is a gold mine, because this just opens up so many new avenues for layering possibilities. I already have so much looks going through my head, just, you know, applying these as a base for a lot of the other shades that are present in her eyeshadow realm. But I struggle to think of this as a standalone palette. You can definitely create a multitude of very beautiful looks. You can do something super colorful. You can go the completely neutral route. Just look at this quad here. And if you add this one here, you have this beautiful like neutral quintet. Then you have obviously the rainbow of matte eyeshadow scattered throughout the palette. You have a couple of your like basic, you know, neutral shades like a taupe, a gold, like a more orangey bronze and a more reddish bronze, and you have this coppery peachy type of gold, like an inner corner kind of highlight shade. You can create like neutral looks with like a pop of like lower lash line color, or you can pair your neutrals with your colorful eyeshadows. For example, you can put this one in your outer corner and then this one on your lids. That would also make a really beautiful look. Like all of these we're going to try out together in the coming time. But like I said, I did not purchase this, and this is not going to give me joy as a standalone palette. I hope this has finally shut up everyone who wanted colorful mattes from Pat, and I still think it is so clever of her to release this as a limited edition palette, because I'm sure that this is not something that she was like, oh, I really look forward to releasing the rainbow. But because people were really begging her to release the rainbow, she decided to give us this in a limited edition context, and I think that's a very clever move, because I don't think this palette is her, you know, regular permanent aesthetic. I think this is something for funsies. I think it's also quite nice to see something a little bit different from the brand, because I can imagine a lot of people are oversaturated with the color stories and eyeshadows that look kind of similar-ish to each other. I get that, don't get me wrong, I understand you. But because I'm not here for it and I don't think that's her aesthetic, this is like, this is fun, but I think it's fine as a limited edition release and nothing more than that. So far the quality of the matte eyeshadows that I tried, the colorful matte eyeshadows that I tried, is fine, but you know, she has a good quality eyeshadow formula, so I didn't really have any doubts that they're going to perform well. But something I can add a little bit of criticism for. Okay, people are asking you to create the rainbow, but you're Pat McGrath. You can rise above and do something more interesting with this palette. I understand, you know, the mattes are the mattes. You can't really do much more with the undertones of those. But why are you giving us these boring metallics? I think the metallics in here are so boring. They're so one-dimensional and not interesting at all. In Celestial Odyssey, there were some metallics that were a bit more simple, but honestly, like 90% of the metallics in Odyssey give me jolts of joy because they're interesting. There is like this golden pink flip, very sparkly, very metallic. There's that bronze Nova shade that I mentioned before that looks a little bit dull in the pan, but then you apply it on your lids and you have all these like different shifts in it. I don't know, I feel like in terms of even the metallic eyeshadows, Celestial Odyssey was so much more interesting compared to this. These are so plain. They're just the color that you see, it is the color that you get in a very boring delivery formula. I would have really liked to see more interesting metallics with more flips to them paired with these rainbow matte eyeshadows. With that said, I don't want to say these eyeshadows are bad. They're excellent quality. They're shiny, they're very beautiful to work with, they're going to look beautiful on your lids, but they're just not going to give you much more than they promise. And I think when you're Pat McGrath, you can do better. And I'm saying that with all the love and respect in my heart that I have for this woman and her vision and her brand. I don't think I have anything more to say about this palette right now. I think my thoughts on it, of course, are still a little bit more scattered, a little bit more in a preliminary phase. Give me a week to get to know it, or a little bit longer, and then I shall tell you what I truly feel about it. But I think I am the most excited about the part of this where we can start pairing this with my other Pat palettes. Anyway, I'm very happy that we got to do this video before I am gone. I'm going to go edit it now and post it as soon as possible on my channel. Tomorrow I'm leaving for my congress, so just be warned that I will probably be lagging a lot behind in responding to you in my comment section, but I'm definitely going to come back and we're going to chat so much about it. So please let me know, what do you think about this palette? Did you pick it up? Did you already try it? What are your thoughts about it? Are you planning on picking it up, or are you being swayed one way or the other based on people's opinions? I haven't really watched that many reviews from other people, so I don't really know where the opinions are swaying towards. Are people liking this? Are people hating this? Are they neutral? I don't know. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye!